Hello and welcome to Dominion Over Finances. I am your host and instructor, Coricka White, and I want to welcome you into the classroom for personal finance and economics. We just finished wrapping up our 3-week session on You Want to Be a Millionaire. Hopefully it was a challenge for you. Hopefully it also awakened you to some of the things that you need to do and you need to put into your personal financial plan. There are some of us out here that may feel like aspiring to be a millionaire is the furthest thing from their minds. And so I want to talk to you tonight about financial recovery, because there are many people right now that are in a position where they need to recover financially, or in months to come, they will need to recover financially. If that is you, tonight is the night that you want to be in session. I want to share with you a bit of my own personal testimony on how I started on the road to recovery after financial bankruptcy. Now, I want you to think about bankruptcy as a financial tool. It's not a dirty word. It's not something that you cannot recover from. It is not something that you should be shameful of or anything like that. Financial bankruptcy is when you come to a point where you can no longer meet your personal financial debts. And that is exactly the position I found myself in right around 2010. So let's go back a little bit. In 2006, I was so happy to buy my first home. My family and we purchased our first home in 2006. And if you guys know any of the economic history of the country, we were literally right on the brink of the Great Recession. Well, it so happens in 2008, the Great Recession happens. Things happen financially within my family, and we get to the point between 2008 and 2009 where we literally were having trouble meeting all of our financial debts. Hence, I was declared, or I took the steps to declare myself financially bankrupt. Now, I want to tell you that there are two different types of financial bankruptcy that people file. They either file Chapter 7 or they file Chapter 13. Because of the financial position that we were in, it was more beneficial for us to file Chapter 7. And in filing Chapter 7, that means that we would allow the bankruptcy court to possess or repossess what we owned or what we declared as having owned, and then the bank would then sell off those particular assets to then recover whatever they could to pay off the financial debt. The other route that many people go is with Chapter 13. In my particular case, in my family's particular case, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy wasn't necessarily, it would not have put us in the position financially that we needed to be so that we could recover as quickly as possible. However, in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, what happens in that particular proceeding is that you are set up with a debt repayment plan. And so many people think of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy setup as a restructuring of your debt, whereas Chapter 7 can be thought of as a reset or a clearing of your financial debt. So it was in 2010 that I sat down with a bankruptcy lawyer, my husband and we reviewed the things that we wanted to put in the financial bankruptcy. And so we determined at that point that we wanted to put our home in bankruptcy. So what does that mean? That meant that putting our home under the bankruptcy proceedings meant that we would ultimately have to foreclose on our home. Oh, how devastating it was for us to have to do that after having saved up. This is our first home. We were able to see it built from the ground up and all of those different things. But we had to make that difficult decision because otherwise we would not have recovered in the way that we needed to. Now, I told you that bankruptcy is a financial tool. And that is just how we use the bankruptcy in terms of our home. So let me explain that a little bit. When we purchased our home in 2006, we bought a townhome for the price of $325,000. This wasn't one of those larger townhomes, 2-car garage, those types of townhomes that's 2,000 plus square feet and all of that kind of stuff. It was a smaller townhome, 1-car garage. And at that time, because home prices were surging, when we got into the market, pretty much at the top. And so that meant that our home cost just what I said, $325,000. Well, remember now, we're sitting in the bankruptcy lawyer's office. It's now 2010 and we're approaching 2011. So that we're right in the midst of the Great Recession. And so at this time now, the price of our home is completely different. So although we bought the home at $325,000, that same home now was only worth about $180,000. And I'm using rough numbers because I don't quite remember since it's been really almost a decade ago. Nevertheless, we used that bankruptcy as a tool because we didn't want to carry forward that negative equity pretty much for the rest of our lives. So we had to make the difficult decision to use that Chapter 7 bankruptcy to let our first home, our first biggest asset, go. But in doing that, it was a blessing because we were able to let go of more than $120,000 of negative equity. So what is negative equity? Negative equity is the difference in the value between what your asset was originally valued to its current value. And that negative equity would have been like balls and chains on us if we had not done what we did through the bankruptcy. Now, it caused us emotional stress, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the next session. It was definitely embarrassment and shame and different things that came along with not only filing bankruptcy, but on top of that, having to go through foreclosure on our home. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was well worth it. And so I go back to my previous point in that financial bankruptcy can be an effective tool to give you a reset on your finances. It can be an effective tool to restructure your finances in such a way that you can recover economically and financially. Now, I'm not implying, nor am I saying that you need to go out today and file bankruptcy. Not saying that at all. But I want those of you who may be struggling right now, who may be thinking, how am I going to get out of this situation? Financial bankruptcy could be a tool that you use. Now, there are some downsides to filing bankruptcy. I had to carry that bankruptcy on my credit report for nearly a decade. And in fact, that bankruptcy just dropped off my credit report. There were things that I did in the meantime to continue to build up my credit, but nevertheless, because now I had to really use the government to intervene on my behalf, on my husband's behalf, we had to suffer the pain and anguish of having that bankruptcy on our credit report. That did not preclude us from going out and buying another home and different things like that. But again, we felt the sting of having that on our credit report. So I want to talk to you, and I really want to round out this session by talking to you about several different things that I had to do, my husband had to do, we had to do collectively as a unit in order to really set ourselves up to get back on the road to financial recovery. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list, but it is a list of the 7 main steps that I and my husband were able to put in effect to get us back on the road to financial recovery, back on the road to buying a home, back on the road to saving and investing, back on the road to rebuilding our credit. The first thing that we had to regain was our financial peace. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. I know that is not the popular first thing to put on a list, but regaining our financial peace was paramount. And the way that we had to do that, and really the only way that I know to tell you how to do that, is through prayer. Yes, it was devastating. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was heartbroken, having gone through what we had to go through in terms of bankruptcy. But it was the financial peace that I needed to regain. It was the bankruptcy really was the open door to allow me to get back to a place where I could be at peace and where I could learn the very important disciplines that I needed to get back on a road to financial recovery. So financial peace and regaining financial peace was the first thing at the top of my list on the road to financial recovery. It did not happen overnight. I had to seek the Lord day after day during this process. I had to seek the Lord on how He wanted me to realign myself with His word. I had to seek the Lord on how I needed to respond to this devastating event in my life, or what I perceived to be a devastating event. And so financial peace was what I needed to regain, and the only way I did that was through prayer. That was a journey, and that was a walk that I had to take with my Father in heaven. And so for many of you, you may need to do the same. Listen, financial peace is something that we all need, no matter if we are a millionaire, a billionaire, a thousandaire, a hundredaire. We all need financial peace. And truly, God, our Creator, is the first step in ensuring and assuring our financial peace. The second step that I took on the road to recovery was getting clear about my vision. And in fact, it was through prayer. It was through me taking the step to regaining my financial peace is where I was able to really be clear about the vision that God had for my life. Here's where I was, and maybe this is where some of you were. For me, getting clear about my financial vision was simply a list of goals and achievements that I had for myself. And that, my friends, is really not vision. Vision is more so that dream, that big thing that the Lord, that God wants you to do. And really, it is something that you cannot achieve on your own. That is your vision. And your vision is typically tied to other people, meaning that you're either going to help other people, or meaning that there's a larger, bigger scope to what it is that God is calling you to do. And it's not just going to impact you or your family or your life or your family's life, but it's going to have a greater impact on others' lives. So financial peace led me to getting clear about my vision. And then the next step was I had to focus on raising my income level. Now, for many of you on here, this is going to mean, and it's going to look different from what my path or my journey was. But the key takeaway here is, in order to regain financially, now that, after the bankruptcy was discharged, now that those debts are gone, now that I'm not responsible for repaying a mortgage, now I had to not only get clear about the vision and reestablish a budget, but I had to raise my income level. So really there's a kind of a two-step process here: raising the income level, raising your family's income level or your own income level, and also combining that with establishing a new budget for yourself. Now, once you get clear about your vision, you can establish the goals and objectives that you need to have. And after having done so, now you're going to put yourself on a path to raise your income level so that you can achieve that vision, so that you can achieve those goals and objectives. And the next way to do that is by redefining what your budget is going to look like. So raising that income level and reestablishing your budget are the next steps that you need to put in play. Financial peace, getting clear about your vision, then reestablishing your goals, your financial goals and objectives, thinking about how you're going to raise your income level, and reestablishing and redefining a new budget for yourself is what you're going to need in order to really get yourself on a path to recovery. Now, one of the things that I did in order to raise my income level is I sought to get an advanced degree. That was a way that I was going to now set myself up for promotion on the job and raise my income level. The other ways that I'm doing now, that I'm seeking now to raise my income level, so really I'm not ever in a position to stop raising my income level. I always want to continue to increase it in some form or fashion, whether that is increasing my income level on the job or increasing my income level in terms of passive income. So that's where I am in my life right now. Continuing to increase my income level, but doing it from a passive income level perspective and from an income level on the job as well. Financial peace, getting clear about your vision, raising your income level, redefining and reestablishing your budget. And then the next step is you want to focus on your credit. And credit restoration was a big piece for my husband and I. One of the first things that we did as the bankruptcy was discharged and as we were going through foreclosure proceedings, the one thing that we needed to do was find a new place of residence. And in doing that, we are now showing that after having filed bankruptcy, that we could reestablish some form of rental history. And rental history can be important for reestablishing your credit. The other things that we did was we've realigned with our credit history. So you have the rental history, which is a part of your credit reporting. And then you have the the credit card history, which is another arm of the credit reporting. And really, they make up now the payment history, which is a huge chunk of how your credit score is accounted for and calculated. Okay, I believe it's about 35%. I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but about 35% of the payment history, your on-time payments, is what makes up 35% of your credit score. And so for us, we did the two things in order to restore our credit. We looked for a new place to rent and had started establishing a rental payment history with the new place where we were renting. And then on the flip side, he and I both went and established some new credit history with credit cards that we were able to get and secure after having filed the bankruptcy. From there, it was vitally important that we did not miss a payment and that every payment we made was on time. And that was our overarching strategy for restoring our credit. At that point, we had about a 2 to 3 year waiting period before we could get back into a new home. And that was our goal. It was our goal to, buy a new home at some point in the future. And so we employed that credit strategy to restore our credit back to the point where we could then go and buy a new home. So after focusing on the credit history and restoring that credit history, now we had to focus on the savings piece. And really the savings piece is tied with, raising your income level and then redefining and restructuring your budget. It was so very important for us that we saved, and we saved so that we would have enough income to cover in case of, emergencies, and having enough in our savings that if someone were to lose their job, we had enough income to cover at least the other person's income for a year or more. And we're still actively saving even until, this day. Savings is not something where you get to, this plateau and you stop. You continue to do so. And you continue to do so largely because you end up taking out of that savings for, whatever reason. So you always need to build it up. And in fact, I've heard some financial experts even say that the 6 to 12 months or the 12 to 18 months of, living expenses still isn't enough, and that you need to stack even more cash than that. And so I have, my husband and I have personal savings goals that go even far beyond the 12 to 18 months of emergency savings that was our original savings goal. So you never want to stop saving, but saving is a vital discipline, and it is a vital component to your road to financial recovery. Let me say this too. Even if it means you're saving $5 a week, you build up that discipline to save that $5 a week. Make it automatic. Remember, I talked about that on last week. So you want to automate that savings, and you want to make that $5 a week go into a separate savings account and make sure that it is automated every week so you can do so. And then once you're comfortable with the $5 a week, now you want to step it up to 10. Get comfortable at the 10 and then step it up to 15, and so on and so forth. Hopefully you're getting the point I'm trying to drive home. It's those little steps that you take that ultimately get you to the place where you want to be. Incremental steps. Even what I'm talking to you about tonight, these are incremental steps that are going to get you on the road to financial recovery. A lot of times people aren't making these huge leaps and bounds to set themselves back up after they've after they have suffered financial loss. They are taking incremental steps to get them back to where they need to be. And so the next incremental step you need to take after savings is investing. So I got to a place, my husband and I, we got to a place where we were comfortable with saving, and we had built up that discipline, and we were comfortable, doing so. And so we wanted to make sure that our money was really working for us. And we wanted to have a separate investment account, separate from retirement, separate from savings, by which we could see our money actively grow and actively expand and actively compound with interest. And so we did it in small increments, just as we had done with the savings, but we began to put away money incrementally into a private savings, we began to incrementally put money away into a private investment account. Now, I personally like TD Ameritrade. That's who I'm with right now. I've had several others. I've had E-Trade and different things like that. I like TD Ameritrade. No plug there necessarily. Whatever works well for you. There are many out there. But I began to, put money aside, and we have built that account up as well. So at this point in my life, 10 years later, I can say that I've restored my credit to an excellent credit rating. My husband and I, we have saved faithfully. We have also invested faithfully. Now we are looking to expand those investments beyond what the traditional investments are. But taking the incremental steps that I've been talking to you about tonight is how we were able to get there. And so the last and final step that I want to leave you with on tonight is this, and it is very important. And I hope you see that I've pretty much kind of sandwiched this list between really two important steps. And remember, the first step I talked to you about was regaining my financial peace. That was the first step. The last step, and really the other layer of the bottom layer of this sandwich here that I've built for you on tonight is this. I had to loose the chains of financial bondage. And why is that important? For many people, they are allowing debt to keep them in financial bondage. Many people don't understand that even debt, so I talked about bankruptcy being a tool, but debt can be a tool as well. And many people call it, leveraging or OPM, using other people's money, but it is a tool. You use that tool when you want to garner an asset that is ultimately going to bring you a greater return. But what I was not doing prior to the bankruptcy is I was using debt to purchase things that were upon my lust and out of desires that I had for myself. I was using debt to buy depreciating assets, and I had this mentality of I'll pay it back later. And that mentality is part of the reason that I ended up in the bankruptcy court. I don't want that to happen for you. And so I had to relearn. So I had to get rid of a lot of those unhealthy financial habits. I had to loose the chains of financial bondage. I had to let go of the mentality that I can pay it back later. I had to let go of the mentality that, I'll always have it later, and that way I can pay it back. I had to understand just the cost of having to pay things back later, how much that was truly costing me. It was not only costing me in terms of the dollars, the dollars and cents of it, but it was costing me in terms of financial freedom, financial security, financial independence. And so I would encourage you, seek the financial peace, but also loose the chains of financial bondage. And in between, take all of those incremental steps that you need and that I outlined here for you on tonight to set yourself up on a road to financial recovery. I hope this helped you. I hope that there are things that you can walk away with that would really help you. I hope, if anything else, that I have been an encouragement to you, that you can set yourself up and that you can recover from financial bankruptcy, you can recover from a financial crisis, and that you can get back on the road to financial recovery. I want to thank you for being here with me. And I want to encourage you to come back on next week, because I want to talk a little bit about those emotions that come along with financial crisis. Because I believe that we don't deal with those emotions enough. We don't talk about them enough. And consequently, sometimes we end up back into some of the same situations that we were in prior to our recovery. So join me here next week. Same time, same bad channel, where we're going to talk about the emotions that come along with financial crisis and how you can overcome them. Thank you for being here with me. I had to loose the chains of financial bondage. Yes, I was heartbroken.